countries that, and in that platform that is called GRACE, you can see all the projects that are funded by all members. There, we are updating the information for the project level, and I think you can go and cross-checking other projects from other countries if you are interested to know what they are doing. So thank you all, and have a nice event today.
Thank you, Susana, and for the exciting. Hope Secretaria Geral is still the operator of the program, so it will be easier for all of us to keep working on this field. So we have for today a busy schedule, so we have a lot of interventions from the project partners. I will begin just to give you an overview of the project. So what are the main blocks of the project, so that my colleagues that will present afterwards, you can understand this in a more, let's say, bird's eye view. Sorry. So I would like to begin. By acknowledging all of our partners. So I would start by random order. I would start IST. Two departments worked together in this project, IN Plus and CERIS, so civil engineering and mechanical engineering. We also had our friend from NTNU here represented, also two departments, I believe, by Professor Helge and Professor Rolf. They will be helping us moderating the discussion. We also have our friends from CentralBIM. They have their team here, Rui, Nuno, Daniel, Pedro. We also have Ateliês Remédios, represented by Francisco. We also have Vic Properties, represented by Luís Cabecinha. So all of us, with three drivers, of course, we work together to develop this project that I will be just giving you an overview, as I said. I would also like, because our project partners will have the opportunity to mention their teams. So I would like also to acknowledge my colleague Verena, Ana Mestre, Marielle has just joined us, Sofia Carvalho and Ana Lopes are joining online, and also Brown, that was here a bit before. She will be continuing working on the final steps of the project. So with all of those acknowledgements, let me just begin by discussing the project as a whole, and then I will pass over the floor to my colleagues. Specifically, I will start with Verena. So the project had, so this is the main, let's say, the main picture of the project. So we had this idea to develop tools that will help practitioners. So I'm talking about architects, I'm talking about civil engineers, etc., to help to implement, to assess, to design buildings with a clear view on the sustainability and circularity of those buildings. So a lot of the work we've done is based on software. So colleagues, my friends from other projects, from the consortium partners will present some of these topics in a lot of detail. So, and I wouldn't even be able to do it. But the four main building blocks of the project are presented here. So the database, and we'll start here the presentation. So my colleague Verena will be presenting that. The database gets all of the data from EPDs and all other kinds of information sources and brings it together in this database. Then we will have Teresa from IST discussing the LCA plugin. We have, in fact, two plugins, well, more than two plugins, to be more precise. So we have the LCA plugin and we have a Circularity plugin. So given that some of the work has been done in the scope of PhD thesis, some of, namely Joana and Teresa, so they had the opportunity to develop a lot of these tools, also with support from some partners. Where is Arthur? There he is. And Arthur helped Joana to develop a bit this, to develop the Circularity plugin. So we also have a Circularity plugin developed by CentralBIM in Revit. Both of them, and so midway in the project, we defined that levels should be the overall framework that we should try to guide our tools. And so this LCA plugin and the Circularity plugins both are trying to address level 1 and level 2 of levels. And we have a final building block of the tool, which is this kind of digital twin application, and that will be presented by Rui. And so that is the, let's say, the wrap up of a lot of the work we've done. So these 4 building blocks will be presented in the 4 next presentations. I will stop here. Let me just quickly say that after that, we'll have the opportunity for a Q&A. So save your questions for that moment. So we'll do the 4 presentations back to back, and then we'll have a moment for Q&A, okay? So, and that's also true online. So my colleague Anna Mestre will be checking your messages in Zoom. So if you have any question or comment, please put them in the chat in Zoom, and my colleague Anna will be more than happy to relay the message. So Verena, please, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Okay, all right, so let's start with the database. No, sorry. Yeah, do you want me to just, no, okay. So there's an overview of the schedule for you, just to have an idea what we're going to do. So talking about the database, basically this was a multi-step process that started with the definition of the objective of the database, and the goal was to have a relational database that feeds different types of information to all these tools that Antonio mentioned. And for that purpose, we had to identify entities, and then for each of these entities, which are basically tables, we defined attributes, which can be corresponded to a parameter. And then we had to map relationships between the different entities, and then to implement it in an entity relationship diagram, which is kind of the backbone or the skeleton of the relational database. At the same time, we did data collection. So we identified different data sources and organized the data that then is to be fed into the database. And for the sake of the presentation, I would like to go a bit more into detail, first on the objective, and then on the entities and attributes, then on the entity relationship diagram that I will present to you. And step 4 will be the data collection. And then I'll give you an introduction or a sneak peek, let's say, of the implemented database in SQL. So what's the objective of the database? The objective is to have a database that systematically collects and stores building data that can be used for life cycle assessment and for circularity assessment, specifically in the scope of this project. And beyond that, it's to provide BIM users with the required robust data throughout the building life cycle. So from the initiation phase, from the design phase, throughout its use phase, renovation interventions to the end of life phase. And with that, to enable the analysis of different indicators of a building, but also of specific elements of the building. And we wanted to go beyond just quantifying materials and towards the integration of life cycle impacts, so that you have a better understanding of what circularity of buildings actually means. Yes, and we also based all of this project and also the data on the EU levels framework, which I think my colleague Seitan will tell you more about, but basically they divide into different levels which correspond to the building life cycle. So step 2 is to identify the entities and to define their attributes. So here I want to show you an overview of the different parameters that we have. So we have a list of classification parameters. So the information is collected for product. So we note down what's the name of the product, where is it manufactured, who manufactures it, and then we need additional information to classify the project using Uniclass and the levels framework, but also the brand layers, which is kind of a common understanding of a building and its elements. We note down the functional unit, which is an important parameter for lifecycle assessment, the metadata, so where does the data come from, how was it calculated, the economic cost, how much does it cost on the market if you purchase it, which is also interesting if you talk about circularity, of course, and then the material composition of the product. And here, this big list are basically environmental indicators according to the European norm 15805, which give all the different impact categories that are required to be reported in an environmental product declaration. So all of this to then get to the entity relationships diagram. You can see a brief overview, but basically you see nothing. So that's why I'm trying to zoom in a bit. So here, the first one are the pink tables, which is the information at the product level. So as I mentioned, you have information about the manufacturer, the declared unit, and so on. And then this is linked to the table or the entity about environmental indicators. And then also often in EPDs, which is our main data source, the end of life scenario is not reported because many of them were made according to the old European norm. And so for those products where we don't have that information about end of life available, such as amount of reused or recycled materials, we provide default values. Sorry, I'm a bit lost with all the buttons. Okay, and then here, this is the part that also provides default values, this time for archetypes. That's interesting if you have an existing building, but you don't have the required information available for that specific building. This is often the case if the building is, let's say, more than 20 or 30 years old, you don't have a BIM model yet, but you still want to do some kind of circularity assessment. So the information can be sourced from these tables. Then we need those ones to classify the building, as I mentioned, according to levels. They're called building tiers and to the brunt layers. This is a slide that describes this a bit better. So what we include in the database is everything in green. So basically the whole building can be divided into shell, core, and external works. So we only include the shell for now. Of course, this could be extended in the future. And this can be divided into structure, space, plan, and skin. These are the three brunt layers that we consider. And then to give an example, for example, the structure can be subdivided into a load-bearing structural frame. And then you have the frame, the floors, the external walls, and the balconies. Just to give an idea of how we're structuring this information. Okay, and then all of this here is information about materials. So a product can be equal to a material, for example, cement. But it can also be a mix of materials. For example, a window can consist of glass and of PVC and of some kind of metal screws and so on. So these tables are used to give information at the raw material level for a product. And then the ones in yellow are the ones about the end of life. Which is an important information for the calculation of the material circularity indicator. So how efficient is the process of reusing and recycling? This brings us to the data collection. As I mentioned, we focus mainly on EPDs, but there were also other parameters that we got from the literature and from levels directly, for example, and from the European list of wastes. And then with all of that, we're finally able to implement the database. So these are some screenshots of the relational database that's put into PHP-MyAdmin, which is a very common MySQL administration tool. It's open source and it's written in PHP. So on the side here, you can see all the different tables, all the different entities. Again, an overview of the different entities. This is zoomed in on the level of waste, which then shows you the different raw materials and what type of waste there are, if they're hazardous or non-hazardous or any other type of waste. And this is for the environmental indicators. So just zoom on or an example of what kind of information is stored for product level. So you see all the different environmental indicators are here in columns noted, and then in the lines you have different products. This is a selection of products that were used for the case study that my colleague Teresa from IST studied. Yes, a common question is how is the database accessed? The relational database that I showed you now is loaded from this web hosting service into Revit for the circularity environmental analysis. And then the circularity tool that's scripted in Dynamo works slightly different. The idea here was that we have a wider access in different programming languages. So the information there is stored in a JSON file, which stands for JavaScript Object Notation, and is then directly accessed from the Dynamo circularity tool in Revit. Thank you.
Thank you, Verena. So now, without further ado, Teresa, please, the floor is yours, and Teresa will be presenting the LCA plugin.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Teresa from Instituto Superior Técnico, CERIS, Civil Engineer Research for Innovation and Sustainability. Okay. The plugin is based on Levels framework, and Levels is divided in 6 macro objectives. From all the macro objectives, we study the ones that could be implemented into a plugin from a life cycle assessment perspective. So we included in the plugin the macro objective number 1, greenhouse gas emissions along buildings life cycle, including the core indicator life cycle global warming potential, and also the macro objective number 6, optimize life cycle end value with the life cycle cost. Levels as a life cycle approach divided in 3 different levels, from level 1, conceptual design, to level 2, detailed design and construction, and level 3, as built as in use. Both of the LCA plugins and the Circularity plugins are based on the project stages, so level 1 and level 2. The plugin was developed for Autodesk Revit and is called the Levels LCA. To do so, we develop a product data template per functionality. Here in the schedule, you can see the 3 main functionalities of the plugin. The first one is the Levels Lifecycle Assessment. The second one, the Levels Global Warming Potential. And the third one, the Levels Cost, and the necessary environmental and cost indicators for each of the analyses, including the unit of measurements. We develop a fluxogram. First of all, it's needed to have a BIM model, then select the stage of the project where the designers are, then pick the analysis. After that, it loads a shared parameter files and select the materials of objects. Then the information from a database is added to the plugin. After that is added to materials and elements. Then we pick run the analysis, and it's possible to export the views as a 3D visualization and also as a total analysis result as an Excel file or a schedule inside the model. To do that was necessary to develop the analytical models that work behind the plugin that consider the environmental impact category and the quantity of material from the model. Regarding the levels cost, it considers the acquisition costs and then the quantity of material. To validate, we studied it in a case study provided by Ateliê dos Remédios, Professor Francisco Teixeira Bastos, which is a residential dwelling. It's a new construction in Alentejo, Portugal. It's a 4-bedroom apartment, 2 living room, a kitchen, and an exterior garden. We tested the 3 functionalities to verify the environmental and economic impacts, and then provide the results to Ateliê dos Remédios for them to see and understand the impact of their choices. Here is a small video of the plugin working. First of all, we need to have a 3D model. Here we see a 3D of the scheme. Then go to the Circular EcoBIM tab, pick Levels LCA. If we are in level 1, a list with 6 questions arises with yes or no questions, and then a brief description can be added. After that, it's possible to export the schedule to an Excel file and send it to all the intervenients. Then it's possible to go back, select the level 2, detailed design and construction. The 3 functionalities arrive. If we pick the levels LCA, a list of environmental indicators necessary to perform the analysis is loaded. Then all the materials and elements in the model are loaded. Here we can see all the materials and elements together. After that, it's possible to filter by walls, windows, floors, the category. In this analysis, we studied the walls, the impact of the walls. We have the total analysis results. And now we can filter again by walls. It's possible to create views or export to Excel file or create a schedule inside Revit. Now, total analysis result for levels LCA in the screen, and a 3D visualization that is automatically generated for each of the environmental indicators. It has a color scheme from green, the lightest impact, to red, the highest impact. We go back to the plugin to perform the second analysis. Now, levels global warming potential. It loads the necessary environmental indicators, global warming potential total, fossil, biogenic, and land use. Now we will filter to walls, and we have the results. We've seen the windows, and now the walls. Export the results to an Excel file, and then create the schedule and create the views. The views are now created, and the Excel file is there. Here is a 3D visualization of the global warming potential impacts. We came back to the plugin to perform the last analysis, which is the cost, the schedule with the total analysis results for global warming potential. Now we come back to the plugin to do the last analysis, which takes in consideration the acquisition costs. Filter again the walls. To do this analysis, we also have we also collect extra information from the BIM model, area, volume, density, or units, whichever it's necessary to do the quantification, and export the Excel. Final image with the cost impacts and the schedule. A brief resume. This is the initial view in the Revit workspace. Then the three main functionalities: levels LCA, levels global warming potential, and levels cost. If we pick levels LCA, the list of environmental indicators, it's loaded. If we pick the levels global warming potential, the list is loaded, and levels cost. This is a captation, a zoom in of the list of BIM elements and materials from the model. On the first analysis, a zoom in on the schedule of results that we've just seen on the video. And the second analysis, the list of results for global warming potential in walls analysis. The 3D visualization. The environmental and economic indicators also remain in the properties of the wall as a shared parameter. So if we open the properties of a wall, we can check the impact of each element. And they are over there. As a further developments, we hope that more environmental product declarations will be available on the Portuguese market in the near future to enrich our database. Regarding levels cost, the plugin at the minute considers the acquisition costs, but we also think that it is important to address extra indicators as labor hours or the need of specialization. Regarding the life cycle stages, at the minute includes the modulo A, product and construction stages, but for further development, we think that to have a more complete analysis further models should be integrated as use stage, model B, end of life stage C, and the potential benefits for reuse, recovery, and recycle model D. So for future analysis, all should be included. This plugin was developed in IST, CERIS department, together with Professor Dr. António Lorena, Professor José Diniz Silvestre, and also our colleague, Susana Escária. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Teresa, for this nice presentation. So very exciting work. And now I will call Joana. Please share the Circularity plugin with us.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Joana Fernandes. I'm from IN+, and I'm going to talk about the Circularity tool. Just to summarize our work and where we are at, we have started with the literature review on BIM LCA integration. We have also studied disassembly, the design for disassembly, the elements of the building decomposition, and the quantification of circularity. Also, we have analyzed the existing standards like the European levels framework for sustainability assessment of buildings, the standard for sustainability in construction works, and also the standard for BIM objects, that is the Uniclass classification scheme. Within the project, we have also collected LCI and LCA data to feed the database and assess circularity. And we have set up the theoretical framework for the BIM-based plugin. Then we have selected some case studies to validate and improve the plugin we have been developing. So our goal is to provide tools for designers and decision makers to implement circularity principles in construction. Similarly to LCA plugin, we have also studied the integration with levels framework. I have studied all the indicators, the inputs and outputs, and selected the ones that are related to circularity, that are indicators 2.1 and 2.2, related with the bill of materials, the quantities, the construction and demolition waste and materials. And the Circularity plugin provides this information and goes beyond that because also provides the circularity indicators. And at the core of circularity assessment is quantification. So first, I had to study the circularity indicators. And this was the first year of the project. So we took the first year to study the circularity indicators and the methodology, the existing methodologies in literature. And we have adopted this methodology that is based on material circularity indicator from Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And this material circularity indicator takes in account the amount of unrecoverable waste, the amount of virgin material, and the utility of the product. Then with the material circularity indicator, we add the disassembly index, that is how materials can be disassembled, how easy or difficult it is to separate the products and the materials to get the product circularity indicator. Afterwards, by grouping products with similar characteristics, for example, groups of doors or walls or windows, and including the mass, we have the system circularity indicator. And finally, the building circularity indicator is calculated using the system and the layers of Brent. After quantifying, we need to automatize the quantification. So for that, we have developed this conceptual workflow for the Circularity plugin.
This was a very complex process because we had to extract information from the BIM model, get information from the database, build a graphic user interface, and then provide the outputs of the circularity assessment. So starting from a new project, first you need a BIM model to start the assessment. Of course, the BIM model has to contain the geometry of the building and also the information on construction systems. If it is a new building, the design team inputs that information, but if it is an existing building, as Verena mentioned, the designer can perform a building automated characterization. That is a methodology based on archetypes that returns the information about the construction system of existing buildings. Then, having the BIM model, the user has to assign the disassembly information for each construction element, and then can perform the circularity assessment with the plugin. And it can be performed as many times as wanted during all the design process. During this second year of the project, I have been developing the conceptual part of the plugin, and as we want to reach the maximum users as possible, and there are many design platforms, we have developed the plugin in 3 different languages. We may say that work with different platforms. So this plugin I'm going to present today was developed by Arthur in Dynamo, in Revit, but also CentralBIM is developing the plugin in C#, and I am also developing a plugin for ArchiCAD that is a different design platform. So you can download this tool freely from this address that is in the internet in GitHub, or you can scan this QR code and you download all the scripts and the data of the plugin. To run this plugin, you need to have a Revit installed, Microsoft Excel, and of course, a Revit model prepared. To demonstrate the plugin, we have selected this case study that is an existing building corresponding to an archetype, which is located in Marvila in Lisbon. So first we had to go to Lisbon Municipal Archive to get the construction permit and the original project to get all the geometry of the building. And in the last month, we have been working in this case study to fill it with as much data as we can. So first, I modeled the building in BIM with a level of detail 200. Then, as it is an existing building, I have performed the building automated characterization I have mentioned. That is based on statistical data and literature review on construction systems, and got this information about all the materials and the disassembly information of all construction elements of the archetype. So having all this information, I could start doing the circularity assessment. Sorry. I guess I have to go here. So the first step is to load the shared parameters file. It's a template where you add to each construction element the parameters that are necessary to assess circularity. So you only have to do this once, and then they remain on the project. On the left bar. So now this is the list of the parameters, and they are already on the left, I guess. Yeah, and they are already on the left for when you select a wall or each element, you get all those properties that are related to circularity. Afterwards, the plugin already offers by default the information on biological, recycled and reused materials, but the user can input its own information if it is different from default. And has to input this information on the connection types, the crossings and the accessibility of the connection. After filling the parameters, the plugin is composed by 3 scripts. The first one is to assign the building layers to each construction element. The plugin offers these results. It's the user only has to click on play, and then you see these colors that represent the layers of the building. The pink are the skin, the gray are the structure, and the blue are the space plan elements. Afterwards, we are going to measure circularity. The only input you have to give is the path of the file where you want to save the circularity report, and then click play. And circularity is being measured. So you get this report, and also all the parameters regarding circularity are in each BIM object. You get general information about circularity of the building and also specific graphical information for each element. Then you can visualize the results on 3D model, and this is useful because you get the immediate visualization of the circularity in the building, and also you can check if there are some errors and you can correct the information. The plugin offers various outputs. Here they are. So on the right, you have the 3D view of the model. On top left, you have detailed information for each material and each product. And on bottom left, you have a summary report of the circularity assessment. Just to zoom in, this is the summary report of the circularity assessment. We can see that unfortunately the results are not great because this is an old building from 1990. So we can see that 79% of origin material is virgin material, and at end of life, 65% is unrecoverable waste. But although they are not very good, these results are useful because they can be taken in account when refurbishing the building, and this is another input to improve the refurbishment, the future refurbishment of the building. Here we can see also the disassembly indicators by group of elements, and also the overall score of the building, that is 58%. If the building was fully circular, the result would be 100%. So the next steps are improving the integration with levels assessment workflow. We want to update the database and the material mapping, and also to test and validate the plugin with more case studies. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Joana, for the nice presentation. Congratulations on all the work you've accomplished. I will pass the word to Rui, who will be presenting the digital twin application. Rui.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, all the team. I think CentralBIM have had the coolest job of all the team, because we implement, all the calculations were given to us, all the formulas, all the data was organized, and we had to implement it. So what did we do? We develop two tools. One tool for level 1 and level 2, design and build phase of the building, and this tool is a plugin for Revit, and a second tool that is for level 3, that is for the operation phase. So this tool, this platform are organized in a simple way for us in 3 components. The plugins on the Revit side, an external database that permits the connection to the digital twin application that, like I mentioned, is for the operation phase of the building. So I would like to show a video that I will show 2 videos. One for the plugin that this plugin permits the calculation of the circularity to do the circularity assessment, and it's the first video. Está no ecrã.
Have to imagine the digital twin.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is a case study. The case study that we used, it's for one of a house of Herdade do Pinheirinho, of one of our partners, Vic Properties, on Herdade do Pinheirinho. And this plugin that permits us to do the circularity assessment have the possibility to do the characterization of a new building or an existing building. So in this case, we are showing here a new building, and we have the possibility on the left side to do the characterization type of this building. These properties, we can do these choices and populate all the elements of the module. On the right side, we have the DFD characterization, designed for this deconstruction characterization, that have 2 possibilities also. Just one moment, I will try. On the left side, we have the characterization type, On the right, we have DFD, like I mentioned, and it's splitted on 2 ways of populating the information on our model. One is by category, another is by element. The first one, it's a very easy and it's the fastest way to do an assessment of a building. We define the categories of all the elements that we want to do the circularity assessment. And in this way, we can populate every element in our building in 5 minutes. And we can use a really big, large building that it's just a very easy and straightforward way. On the right side, we can refine these choices that we made by category, but for each element of the building. So this characterization of DFD is the definition of the connections between elements like 2 walls or a wall and a door. We define all these connections, and with these 2 characterization type and DFD characterization, we can produce an assessment. And in this way, like what we are showing here, we have a complete analysis of each indicator that that this tool permits to do the assessment. On the right side, we can choose what kind of indicator we want to see in a graph matter. On the right side, we can see indicators, numeric indicators, and we can create 3D views for each indicator in a visual in a view in Revit. In this way, the architect or engineer that is studying our building can intervene and choose better materials to enhance the circularity assessment that we for a specific building. We can choose every element, and in this way we can see the circularity indicators for each element. We are trying to choose the element, and in this element we can see all the indicators, circular indicators, and in this case connections that we have made on the DFD characterization. So on the last step, we can export all these calculations, all these assessments in a PDF report like we are showing here. Okay. So our last tool is the digital twin. What is the purpose of this tool? We develop BIM models of our building on Revit tool. In Revit, we have the possibility to define not just the current current building, but very different stages of development of the building. What we want to show to you right now is the possibility in external application, these visualizations, and to see what kind of circularity indicators were calculated on the Revit tool. And we can see here, this tool have the ultimate purpose is to facilitate the forwarding of the materials that are on the end of life cycle, and to companies that can treat those materials. So this tool have the possibility to create different kinds of purpose profiles of users. We can, like we are seeing here in this menu, we can create new users, manage entities. Entities are projects, like the project that we are showing right now. Here we are selecting also again Herdade Pinheirinho, that is one of projects of one of our partners, Vic Properties. And here, all these models were developed on the Revit tool. This is not Norway, yeah. So here we can see by colors, different kinds, different colors. We can see the circularity indicators. We can see all the metadata that are coming from that we defined on Revit, on the 3D modeling tool. Here, I will try to you can see the interiors that will change, because we are trying to show a possibility of remodulation, different stage that some objects, some materials are going to be taken from the building. So here we can see the materials, that the elements that are going to be taken from the building and have to be treated. So in this moment, the tool permits to on the Revit side, we can, the project, the engineer, the architect have the possibility to define a treatment, a probable treatment type for each element. And in this moment, the user can define the exact treatment type and the treatment entity that will treat that kind of material. The goal is to create a report to have the possibility to have the exact quantities of each type of material, and in this way we have a database of a report of these kind of reports can be useful for not just the entities that will treat the materials, but also the users that can have a better understanding what is what is going to happen to the materials that is going outside of their building. For just to close, the next steps that we think that we can do with the digital twin application is use this kind of methodology, not just for residential services buildings, but also industry. We are seeing specific projects that tons of materials are each year going, it's reaching their end of life cycle. So we should track those materials and specify entities that can better treat them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Let me just put this in presentation mode. Okay, so Rui, thank you so much. So we had these 4 presentations that gave us the details of the project. You saw a lot of software tools. So now it's a good time to do a pause and just give you the opportunity to do some comments, questions. I don't think we have any questions from the Zoom channel. We have, so I will pass to my colleague. So if I will give priority to the people in the room. So if we don't, please. Someone want to say something, comments, questions? Sorry?
Project is going to close. Yeah, thank you. Project is going to close. What about the future? Can you assure or some of the entities what is going to happen afterwards? Thank you.
Thank you, Susana. I can speak for 3 drivers and I will maybe pass then to Rui. And if anyone else wants to speak, please feel free. For 3 drivers, this is a project that will have commercial follow-up. So we believe that the database we are developing, despite the fact that will be free to access, we see a lot of this kind of model where by supplying the database, supplying information, new companies can come to us and be devised. We find the data for their own purposes. So for us, there's a commercial point of view. So it will not follow up as an R&D project, but more as a commercial project. And I think, Rui, if you want also to share, because you've been one of the most, yeah.
Okay, like I mentioned, we are seeing potential to use to develop these on the industry side, but in all buildings, any kind of building is a database of resources, and if we can create an ecosystem of entities that can treat them, create a database of buildings that exist, and put these different kinds of informations connected, we can create this ecosystem and potentiate a better approach for environment. So we are quite confident in that. Yeah.
Thank you, Rui. I don't know if someone else from the project team wants also to give some insight. Further comments?
I just want to say that this was a great opportunity to promote what I think was a breakthrough in research. So I think this opened a pathway that many people will follow. And I thought this is a very, very exciting moment to proceed with this.
Thank you, Professor. So maybe if we don't have any other comments from the floor, please, Anna, can you share? I'll put the mic there so everyone can listen back home.
Thanks a lot. So I'll start here with the first question that we have on our Zoom, and it's specifically for the LCA plugin. So the first question is there a way to choose a different database in case the project is not in Portugal? So I think most of the questions that are popping up are pretty much crossing our different partners. So everyone that wants to. Okay. We also have for the LCA tool, if it's only running the analysis in the Revit environment, at least for now, or do we have the chance of performing the analysis directly in the browser to check and save the results of different variations of the project for a future design optimization? Also, regarding the database, Tazhin, I guess, asks if the database are dynamic or how adaptive are the models to change. And where are the data sets stored and how much flexibility does the model offer to users in terms of LCA modules and circular strategies? And the third question, how to deal with low quality data. So perhaps we start by answering some of these that are already complex questions. Shall we start there with the LCA plugin? Okay.
Teresa, I'm just going to ask you to reply there. This is a tough one.
Okay, regarding the database, the plan is to connect to another database more complete in the future to have more database worldwide. Regarding the reports and the plugin, the calculations, everything is done inside Revit, but then it's possible to export, save the results and compare with other solutions and then check which one is the better solution and compare all the environmental performance and so on. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, Verena.
Thank you. Maybe just to repeat, I think the question was how adaptive the models are and if the database is dynamic. So the information flow goes from the database to Revit, but the information does not currently go from Revit to the database. So it's not dynamic in that sense. I think it's definitely interesting maybe to explore that in the future to see how also like in architectural design process, how this evolves and how this information could feed the database and then to learn from that in future projects. There was another question. How to deal with low quality. Yes, that's a good one. Well, our approach was to use archetypes to be able to give the user at least some kind of information in case there's none available specifically for their project. However, of course, this is an approximation or a generalization of what's actually happening. And yes, as in many other case studies and projects, the amount and quality of data is crucial to the interpretation and quality of the result. So the more data you have, the more information you have about your project, the better it is, of course.
So if I could just add on that specific point, please. Like there's no, the aim of the project was not to deal with the quality of data. That's a big question, but it's definitely very hard to address it. It's a practitioner's approach to use to compare data and so on. So, but this was outside the scope of the project. And I don't know, please.
Hi, Arthur Tomczak from Norway. I will just add to what Verena said, that, for example, in the Circularity plugin, we took very conservative assumptions, for example, about the connections and all the material data, but users are free to like put the precise data that they have if they have it, but you don't need to put anything and you can get the results, but probably the model will be black, as we saw, because usually the default values are really bad. But also I wanted to reply to the previous question. So the tool is open source, everybody can use it, contribute, and it's not closed just to Revit because it's in Python, and the Dynamo that you saw is just the interface, the wrapper, but the body of the code is in Python, open source, and everybody can use it. And yeah, I hope it will be useful.
More than free to access, we are inviting everyone to check the tool and suggest. Helge, please.
Thank you. So my name is Helge brattebø from Norway. I think this project has developed two things. It's a methodology and tools. And it's important to distinguish between those things, or to comment on both of them. For instance, there is not new methodologies in the LCA integration with BIM, but on circularity there is, right? So of course that methodology will be, as in R&D projects in general, they will be improved over the next years. And with open source, there is no problem in linking up to new, let's say, tools and developing across strategies, across countries. But always, no tools are perfect, but some are useful. And I guess this will also be seen here. So it's a kind of a strategy where R&D offices and researchers, in combination with industry actors and those working in between, like the drivers, will have to work stepwise. Thank you.
Thank you, Helge. If we have, and there's one more question, please.
Yeah, if the digital twin requires continuous live database access, or can it act locally?
Can you repeat? I think Rui wasn't.
Rui? Okay, so if the digital twin requires continual live database access, or can it operate on local basis? Okay.
All the tools are connected in real time with the database. They extract the information. There is one side of the information that we have, that is the metadata that are brought from the Revit model. But the database, the connection to the database, it's live. One thing that someone, I think, asked, is can we use this on a browser, internet browser? This tool, no, but the one next step, very easy to do, is to implement the digital twin tool in an internet browser, with connection, live connection to a database that can be put on a cloud everywhere that we want. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I just mentioned there's one question where people can find more information about the project. You can search Circular EcoBIM project, and you will find the reports that we have produced so far. You can see the podcasts. You can see some of the reports that we have already produced. But we will keep the webpage updated. The next few weeks we will probably upload more reports. So keep an eye on the website. So now we have time for a coffee break. So for people at home, there's also time for you to do your stuff, but we here will do a coffee break and we will reconvene in 15 minutes. Okay, so we'll be. Professor just told me to shut up.
This is
Welcome back after the break. So we just heard before the break, actually, I said that some models and methods are useful. So the question is, are they? And if so, how? And also, is there a need? Welcome to the panel, the roundtable panel. We have with us my colleague from NTNU in Norway, Professor Rolf Bohne, Professor of Civil Engineering. And I'm Helge Brattebø, Professor of Industrial Ecology. And we have Pedro Mêda from the University of Porto. He is a researcher and project manager, faculty of engineering, and also technical coordinator of the Growing Circle project, which is another project funded by the EEA Grants in collaboration with the NTNU. And then we have Marco Pedroso, recently finished his PhD on super insulating materials. That's quite specific, is it? Yeah.
No, it's more broader than it.
Oh, it's broader, yeah. Fundamental research, but also you are head of sustainability at the Build Collab, a collaborative laboratory for a digital built environment, where the aim is to support policy development, right? Yeah, on issues such as the European Green Deal and circular economy. And also my colleague and over many years, actually close friend, Professor Paulo Ferrão, from the Institute Superior Técnico, where Paulo actually also is the president and the founder of the Center for Innovation, Technology and Policy Research. And he is also the former president of a cost association and the Portuguese National Funding Agency for Science, Research and Technology. And we met some years ago when you were the director of the MIT Portugal program. So the aim is to reflect and to have your opinions on the value, the usefulness and the need of these kind of tools. I don't think we will go very much specific in details on the nitty-gritty things on the tools, but kind of more aggregated. So as you come from different backgrounds, it will also be nice to know how you, each of you, see the need and the usefulness of these tools. So Rolf, please, I guess you will follow up.
Yes, I have kind of the first set of questions, and this goes to each of you at the same time. But so I want you to briefly, in your own words, tell us what is your particular type of expertise and on which area this is relevant to this project. So I guess I start
with me. Yeah. Thank you very much. So my background, although I'm a civil engineer, I've been working in data management, and we saw on these presentations a lot of data and data requirements. So I would say, put some emphasis on that. But also I've been working in procurement, public procurement, so agreements. That's something that is also related to this, and how should we improve the way we procure to make this feasible and then less, not less costly, but to cost the same, because nowadays cost is quite demanding. And how these aspects and these tools that are digital tools twin with the green transition. So I will say put some emphasis on these aspects: data and procurement.
Thank you very much. So I'm an industrial ecology person, and more recently, I'm very much interested in sustainable cities. So I'm happy to participate in the European Mission on Carbon Neutral and Smart Cities. And of course, I'm very interested in this topic because let me just say a figure. So 30% of the resources worldwide are used in construction. So that is a very good motivation to promote a circular economy in construction.
I have the micro, thank you. Well, my expertise is around life cycle analysis, and in the last year, I've been in the Build Collab, and we are developing the circular construction, the Portuguese circular construction action plan. This is a project that is made together with Fundo Ambiental, the environmental fund here in Portugal, and we have a partnership with other entities such as the Portuguese Environmental Agency and so on. This action plan will go out in December this year. So it will bring to the Portuguese construction reality 30 measures that in due time you will know. So this is my bias for the conversation, and I hope to be up to speed with that. Yeah, that challenge.
Thank you. So the follow-up question is kind of, okay, given your perspective, what is your personal opinion of the relevance of this project, and kind of how does this meet the view of the current needs?
Would you like to?
Well, when you know that there is an action plan that you will have in a short time, and with the conjunction that you have in terms of the European the requisites, the dispatches and so on, this kind of projects bring the knowledge that you can start to apply and to learn with the errors or the challenges that are upon you. So this, I think that this type of projects have this very important path that they take you, the identification of challenges and the opportunities that are attached to them.
Yeah, so I think it's always better to come up with a story. So to me, everything started with a story. I was invited by a deputy mayor of Lisbon, and he asked me, well, do you have a great idea for a regulation? So there was a regulation, municipal regulation that will provide an incentive. For example, if you have a building and if you do something great, you will be able to, for example, to build an extra floor. And he told me, well, you know, the existing incentives are based on, for example, having LED or something like that. And I said, well, I gathered with Joana and I told him, well, we have an idea. So we should look at materials and to how far the regulation can in the future promote circular economy, to recycle, to put that on the design phase. And he told me, well, you know, that's a great idea, but I cannot implement it because I don't have the tools. And I said, well, I will develop the tools. And that's why we are here. Today is a very important day for us. I think I'm very proud of the work that has been done, of the PhD of Joana. And I think in the next meeting, we will all be able to come to these gentlemen and say, well, from now on, you can start pushing for BIM, discussed with this with Antonio many times, and to go ahead. A long pathway, but now at least we have the tools.
Well, I think that there is under the European Commission, the Green Deal strategy, and this Green Deal strategy is made of, I would say, 4 major dimensions. One is the environment, the other is the energy efficiency, waste, and digitalization. And recently, there was a Commission document twinning green and digital transition. And this for me is key because we were already trying to do that. And I think all the projects under this EEA Grants call were, I would say, a bit ahead in time trying to gather digital tools to achieve circular economy. So I think we just need to continue this way.
We will. Marco, you said the circular economy action plan. We also have an action plan in Norway going on right now, and the construction sector is one of the sectors highlighted along with the process industry for actually implementing the circular economy. And Paulo, you said, well, let's develop the tools. So now we have the tools. And my question would be, couldn't we work without such tools? Why and how are those tools needed now? The tools in order to actually be able to estimate as a basis for knowing and then for designing. Maybe we should have an architect. We don't have an architect here, but anyway, is there an alternative way, or to what extent are these tools actually needed? Would you like to answer?
Yes, I can tell something. Yeah. So the tools aren't only digital. With this, I want to say that you need, and I'm telling you this with the basis of the 1,000 persons that participated in our workshop in the reality of Portugal. It had a large expansion of people, a large representation of the several actors that are involved in the AEC sector. And one of the things that they told us is lack of capacitation or education towards this thematic of circularity, sustainability, then the economical costs, and also the lack of case studies. This to tell you what, digitalization is very important. The digital tools are crucial for this, but also other types of tools are also needed, such as workbooks, like this panel discussing with other people to know what they think about it. So not only digital tools, it's my opinion.
Well, to me, it's very clear that you cannot act on something that you cannot measure. So we were just discussing, for example, if you buy an automotive, so you will have the automotive to be, for example, recycled or reused by 85% of the weight, and you can monitor all the bolt and the door and the tire, and everything is scrutinized. The building, which is by far the biggest thing in which we live and that we manufacture, there is no such thing. And again, so if the CAD systems worked for the car industry, that we need now to do that for the buildings, and we need to provide adequate information. And again, I think this is absolutely crucial. Otherwise, we will not be up to the task. And the task is no small. If we want to design carbon neutral cities, we cannot forget to do this. We cannot, be so bold that we don't try to measure, and of course to provide actionable items under quantitative schemes.
And that leads me to the data. We need to collect the data. We need to develop data, and we need to hand over the data through the construction life cycle. And for that, in order to do it in a, I would say, efficient way, we need to have it in the digital format, and then the tools are suited to that purpose. It's like they support the traceability of this data. So in one hand, we need to do the effort, and digital is not there to collect the data. Then we need to do the effort, and digital is there to place it in a way that is interchangeable, interoperable, traceable. And then we need the tools to work that data and to manage to be able to exchange it from one to the other during the construction life cycle. So that is the vision that I have for the tools. They support the traceability of the data that we need, but we need to have the data, and we saw how difficult it was to get it for this case study, and we also had the same problem in the Growing Circle project. Would you like to respond to that, Marco?
No, it's not to respond. It's just to tell that data is very important, but translating data into information is even important. is more important than that. Just to say that, because when you have IoT, Internet of Things, you have sensorization, digital twin, and so on, you have loads and loads and loads of data. But then you have to transform that into information that will be useful to evaluate circularity, the availability of materials, to, in a certain way, avoid the depletion of natural resources. So it's very important, and I agree with Professor Ferrão and with Pedro in what they tell.
Yes, you have to agree because you are just a recently PhD, so these guys are more experienced. Sorry, we always do that at university. I guess the question about, let's say, lack of data, quality of data, of course, a tool is never better than data, but still a tool is never perfect. So translating data into understanding, and of course, it's a decision support tool, supporting decisions. A side reflection I have when you're discussing is that, of course, this is a project that delivered and developed some tools as kind of an R&D approach. Now things has to move into reality. And then many questions open up. To what extent is the market ready for that? And so on. I guess, Rolf, we discussed this. You have some follow-up questions on that part.
Yes, but first I want to comment on the car analogy, because if you go into the shop, you have, if the car is, they have designed the car, used a lot of money on developing the car, a lot of iterations, but then they sell 1 million similar cars. And if you want to have 1 million similar buildings, then there were not so much need for architects. So I think they would oppose to it. But so they have done all the mistakes before they start making them. But we are now making, every new building is a new building, and we kind of make new mistakes. So that's an interesting point. But going back to the topic here and kind of the applicability of the tools in practice. So my questions to all of you is kind of, first of all, to what extent do you think such tools are ready for being used in the market? And are they now applicable for more widespread use in praxis or in research? And how could the users run, or how can we scale up this? Then kind of, is there a difference between Portugal versus other countries? Very interesting. I just by walking around here, your buildings are totally different from our buildings. And then on decision support, is this for early planning or kind of where the important choices are made, or is it kind of for later stages in the buildings? And then finally, kind of any, yeah, I think I stop there currently.
Okay, good question, long one. Let me try to answer my opinion, and I will try to stick to data. And I think that we try to work awareness of the stakeholders, and work awareness is for them to get empathic with these tools. Because when we start explaining, for example, data templates, digital product passports, people say, here we go again, another concept that does not mean anything to us. We need to overcome that. I think that these projects are supporting that. People now understand what this is, and they see the value of it. I will also use a story because we had that, and it was very, very interesting. When we went to a construction site where a contractor is doing a refurbishment of a building, and we say, okay, we need to evaluate circularity, he laughs. But then we continue going and said, you're still here? Is there some, and everything is to be measured? He said, yes, but you need to see this. And we had a scale in our car, and we took the scale and we just place it in the contractor office. He said, what are you going to do with that? He said, you'll see. So we just cut a part of the building. It was the frame of the openings. It was all in steel. It's supposed to be wood, but it was in steel, cut half meter, and we weighted it. And then he saw the picture because he automatically did the math of the amount of steel it was in front of him. He knows how it costs, so he could see the picture, the value of it. And that is part of the mission, to have the people understanding in working with the tools. They need to have the mindset on cost, but also the mindset on weight, because it's the mindset that is needed for this circular aspect. And if they can see, because civil engineers and architects also, they can dominate costs. If they can see the picture on weight and then convert it to costs, they will start using this because they will see the value and potential profits on this. But to do that, we need data. We need data and we need awareness. So I don't know if we are ahead or quite ahead or quite delayed on this. I think we have our rhythm with our constraints. But I think people nowadays in practice are start to seeing the benefits. So let's keep going on this.
Thank you. Three things. First, the first one is eventually the embodied energy, which is in our buildings, represents more than 10% of the CO2 emissions. So we cannot forget that, number one. Number two, your example about the cars, Rolf, I agree. But I think that's why it's even more important that we look in buildings in order not to let every building be very crazy. So that's why we need more regulation. So, and the regulations need to define targets and reference values and eventually limits. And of course, this requires these BIM-based solutions, which we are discussing now. And I think we need to we are lagging behind in Portugal. We are lagging behind, that's very clear. Other countries are already have a compulsory BIM use for new buildings. We don't. I think we should. So let's be bold to do this. And I think that's the only way forward. And I think this project, again, provides an important contribution in the right direction.
Well, to build upon what Professor Ferrão said, and also Pedro, I think that when we look to the European regulations, we see Green Deal, the European taxonomy, we see the revision of the GPP, of the Green Public Procurement, in which the buildings that are the focus of revision, instead of just buildings, office buildings, they will be to the all buildings that are involved, that incorporate also levels. So we are starting to see a great migration of interest to these aspects of circularity, to quantify this circularity, and these tools that are being created nowadays, they are essential. They are really, really essential, and I truly believe in the work that we are doing here in Portugal, that this will shift our paradigm. It's a paradigm shift. The linear to a circular economy, it's also a paradigm shift in the construction sector that is truly needed. And to say that I entirely agree with Pedro. The people need case studies and to see how much each of those materials value, and that the building has a value. Not only when you go for a demolition, you are wasting resources. Professor Ferrão was saying embodied energy, embodied carbon. So why aren't we using the buildings as materials banks, also landfill mining to get the materials? And to close the circle, these tools, these digital tools, are completely essential to what the challenges that lie ahead of us.
So if I can try to sum up a little bit of what you said, starting with Professor Ferreira, you want every building to stop being a prototype and going into an assembly of pre-qualified pieces put together by digital tools.
Providing all the treatment To architects, I don't want to. I'm not saying architects should do all the buildings equal, but of course they should be very imaginative, but obey to the limits of growth in a certain way. So this is even, I think, better for architects. They need to think better in different dimensions.
Yes.
So
Any
I don't want
other
to return back to my school and to be, let's say, banged by all the architects saying that, yeah.
So, but any other comments to what you heard from each other? I start with you.
Well, I completely agree here with the part of the architects, because we already have in previous, we standardized materials, we standardize products, but we cannot standardize shape, nor is I'd say, relevant to do that. So I think freedom is good on the shape, but the products, let's not reinvent the wheel, I would say.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's take the last questions on the future. Paulo, you said that we are a little bit lagging behind in Portugal. We should have requirements for BIMs in the regulations. In Norway, we don't have requirements for BIM in legislations to the same extent. We now have requirements in legislation for energy use, and we are pressing on to have also materials use and the life cycle impacts related to materials as part of legislation, but the government is a little bit slow on that. You mentioned also case studies. What would be your recommendations now for the, I mean, we have good tools. The project seems to have good deliverables. What would be your practical recommendations for how to speed up that process of diffusion into real life use by architects or consultancy, let's say houses, consulting engineers or portfolio owners? Paulo.
Well, I have a recommendation that I'm now going to try to implement. So the actors need to be the actors. So, and these are the mayors and the municipality leaders. Let me tell you another fact. This is not a story, this is a fact. Around 20 cities applied, Portuguese cities applied to the mission in the European Commission to be carbon neutral by 2030. They applied. This is because they are motivated. 3 of them were awarded, the others didn't. So, but this means that we should create a network of cities that sits together, thinks together, and come up with solutions that are, I hope, bold, but at the same time implementable. And this is my suggestion, and that's where I will try to work to create a network of Portuguese cities that tries to advance in policy terms, in practical terms, and well, I hope it may work.
So you should be working for the fact that Portuguese cities is becoming part of the new 100, it will be 106, I guess, carbon neutral cities in Europe. In Norway, we have Oslo, Trondheim, and Stavanger part of that. That would be good. Yeah. Let's continue working on that urban level. Marco, please.
Well, in terms of municipalities, we have a project here in Portugal, R2CS, which means a network of circular cities, 6 municipalities here in Portugal. We already did a presentation over there to try to present them the action plan. One of the municipalities is one of the biggest, which is Vila Nova de Gaia. And I completely agree with Professor Ferrão. We need to involve local, regional, and national levels. So we have to get everyone on board and to believe in what we are doing. This is not magic. This is not something that a couple of crazy PhD students are doing in the lab on an institution. No, this is playing with our future and with our resources. We need to take a step towards it.
Yeah, well, I will continue on the awareness part. And the engagement of the value chain, of the construction value chain. But typically the construction value chain is the owner, the architect, the engineer, and the contractor, and the supervision. But that is not enough. We need to engage the others, manufacturers, because they are the ones that have the responsibility or the ownership of the data that is relevant for our products that we need to digitalize. So we need to engage the entire value chain, manufacturers, facility managers, etc. And when we do this, we need to engage them with the simple things. Green procurement is not that all building will be green. It's because we are adopting a window that is better than the others, and that should be enough in one initial phase, and then we continue on an incremental basis. And on the other hand, we use these tools to say that they can be rather complex, but let's just make it simple for the first time, and then build upon that. Because by doing this, we are engaging the entire value chain, and we are, and this is not, I'd say, good to say, but it's what happens. People will tend to react to this saying it will cost more. And this needs to be removed out of the equation. And if we do it simple, it is not mandatory to cost a lot more. It might cost a bit more, but not a lot more. And that, I think, is one of the strategies that we need to pursue.
Yeah. Please. I just want to say that we need to do this in international cooperation. And I need to give to both of you a special word of thanks. So nothing that we did would have been possible without the cooperation with Norway, without your cooperation. And I think, of course, when I spoke about the Portuguese network, it is important, but of course, looking into our partners and benefiting from the knowledge of others and experiences.
I also think that there is lots of things to learn across countries here. And okay, some might be further on some aspects, but others are further on other aspects. Rolf, I know you have some final, your kind of favorite questions.
Yes, always. So it's quite simple questions, but maybe not so simple to answer. So the final question or statement I would like to hear from you is kind of, what do you like most about this project? And then the follow-up is, what makes you skeptical, or what are you hesitating about from this?
I would say that what I was more eager was the data collection. What I'll become more hesitant about is the data collection.
Well, what I loved in this project were to be able to work in multidisciplinary teams. So architects, engineers, software designers, practitioners, companies. VIX should be here seated again with us. So they are the implementers. And this was wonderful. What I fear the most is that the time for adoption of BIM solutions in a more broad way.
Well, in terms of the positive aspects of this project, I think that the innovation that is associated with it, I think that the reality, each country has its own reality, and the archetypes that are for Portugal are not the same in Spain or in Norway, and so when you develop a tool that is for this specific market, I think that it's a very, very important aspect to retain. In terms of what should be improved, I think that the LCA should be cradle to cradle. I think that it's important when we are talking about, I'm sorry, Teresa, but when we are talking about circularity, we have to measure cradle to cradle to evaluate that. And in terms of circularity, well, design for disassembly is very, very important. There is an ISO, the 20,887. If there is an ISO, there is an importance that is recognized to this. So EPDs is another point. Why in the first step, why don't we create three different levels of EPDs? One sectorial, okay, it has an error, a bigger error, but you start to characterize the local reality, the national reality, and then you go down the rabbit hole to the real EPD, which is for that specific product. So I think that opportunities is something that doesn't lack in this project and the others.
So in other words, the conclusion is more research is needed. Also.
And Rolf, if you ask me the same question, I would say that what I like the most actually is the fact that the project and its deliverables makes it possible to translate concepts, strategies into solutions with some estimated evidence. And that is what is needed to make decisions. Of course, there is uncertainty and there is poor data and so on, but without that ability, actually, we cannot change. And what I am skeptical about, or what I actually not necessarily skeptical, but I wish we should have come further, that is to demonstrate the applicability and the usefulness of the tools for a larger sets of case studies. Because I think that is what is really important in order to harvest those experiences, understanding and experiences to go further. So would you be happy with that answer, Rolf?
Yes.
Yeah.
And do you want to answer to your question?
Well, I like very much the kind of that we have started to do something about the circularity in a cross-disciplinary sense. And I also really agree with Marco in kind of that we have to have some, I would say, benchmark. And we have had similar ideas, but in order to make this, then we need every new building to provide a BIM. That would be kind of the start for me to that. And I'm a little bit skeptical if that the authorities are understanding this and are going to implement it. That's kind of, but that would be a low-hanging fruit to kind of collect for every type of buildings, BIMs, and then you can make kind of a 2020 benchmark. So for every kindergarten we make, this is the kind of what is the benchmark, and in 2023 you have to do, I don't know how much better, but better.
I would like to thank you very much for your elaborations on the perspectives. We have some few minutes left, so there will be opportunity for questions from the audience. Those, if there are any questions from you here, please come forward. Anna Mestra, are there also some questions online?
Just here a small question for Marco, I guess, because so here Ryan is asking, because I guess you mentioned that you had a study with thousands of IX practitioners and
yes.
Okay, so
in Portugal.
Yeah, he's asking about that study.
That study will be available in circularity.buildcollab.pt in December 2022.
And I think we have one
There's
more
a question also. Please come forward, and then you will have a microphone. Please, Antonio.
Thank you. I just wanted to first of all say thanks to all, because it was a great discussion and very useful and generous, in fact. Secondly, I would like to say that regarding digital tools, I'm a big fan, not because of the tool itself, but because of the way we design the tool. We need to think about the process. We need sometimes to redesign the process. We need to identify the sources of data to understand how we create knowledge with those data. And so for me, it's not the digital tool that is important, is the change in the process that we need to understand to have at the final stage a good tool. And then there is, of course, a great challenge that you mentioned also, that is how to transform this tool in a tool that gets to everyone. Should we try to do this tool mandatory? Should we just do capacitation and wait for organic implementation? In fact, I don't have an answer, but I've been working on this digital transition, and I see, for instance, with BIM, that we need some kind of compulsory mandate. Not only because people are waiting to step in, but above all, because the digital tools do not get to everyone. And if we turn this compulsory, we have the compromise of the government or the public bodies that this should get to everyone. And we should do the guidelines, we should do other tools to allow the whole industry to get in this digital transition. And of course, the digital cycle is very important and very challenging, because once we get in, we need to continuously innovate. And this is the second challenge. We need to understand and learn how to continuously innovate. And I have a question, because we see that sometimes the tool must be compulsory, but also we need to have a business model that works. And we need to have the circularity operators that go to the construction site, get the products, put them in the storage, then someone sells with a marketplace or so. And my question is there already a business model? These stakeholders already exist. How do we get to them?
I can answer a little bit, and I guess the panel also. In Norway, we have several businesses that are trying to do this. But there is a big problem. First of all, we don't want to recycle everything. For instance, the windows. We use no triple glazed windows in Norway because it's a cold country. And the windows that are coming to the recycling plant is the double glazed, so they are not technically good enough. So we don't want to do them. And the other one is the temporal aspects, because when you're designing a building, you want to know what you are designing with. So then that is quite a long time before you start actually the construction, and kind of what type of secondary materials are available. And so if you're going to have this system, you either have to report the forthcoming materials well in advance, or you have to have a very big warehouse to store things. And there are people trying to do this digitally now. You know, I'm not so sure if it's running very successfully yet, but it's on the way.
I think it's time to close the roundtable. Thank you very much for the questions. Thank you very much for your perspectives. Nice discussion. Do we have a business model? There is one business model that has been around for quite a few years. We are constantly revising things, how we're doing. New models are developed. 10 years ago, the models we used were differently. Now we have the digital twins and so on. We have platforms. These platforms like digital twins and BIMs will be there for many, many years into the future. However, plugins, the questions we ask, they will be different. They will come new tools and so on. So we have the business model we have. We are developing, things are evolving, and we are learning from what we are using. We have to maximize that process of learning, translating data and knowledge into understanding that influences decision-making. And I think that business model works. Thank you very much. And also, I would like to thank the funders for funding the project and follow up. And also, I would like to thank Antonio, 3 drivers, for leading the project in a very efficient way. It has been a pleasure working with you from the Norwegian side. Thank you.
So thank you, everyone. We are closing today. Thank you so much for joining us in this final event. Go to the website and see everything we'll be posting in the next few weeks, and hope to hear from you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.